Hi everyone, my name is Jaswant. I'm a member of the Teen Advisory Board here for the Howard County Library System. The topic that we're going to be going over today are Python lists. Alright, so what is a list? Lists are one of the 4 built-in data types in Python. Data types are used to store collections of data, and lists are one of those data types, so therefore lists are used to store collections of data. So to define and use lists, we create a variable and set that equal to square brackets. So in this image, we have a variable called fruits, which is set equal to square brackets. This is the opening square bracket. This is the closing square bracket. And inside of these square brackets, we have the data that we want to store. Okay, but we have multiple items in this list. And if you have multiple items, you have to follow them up with commas and spaces. So I'm going to create a variable called num. You can call your variable whatever you want. And I'm going to set that equal to square brackets. Now this is the syntax for a list. We have a variable set equal to square brackets. And inside of this list, I want to store a bunch of integers. But I also want to store different data types. So I'm going to store floats, Boolean statements, let's see, strings, a variable, which I have to define, and I'll just set that equal to a bunch of letters. Okay, let's see, maybe another list. All right, so something about Python is that you can store multiple different data types in the same list. Not a lot of other programming languages out there have the ability to do this. You can only store one data type. Okay, and something to note is that we have 5.0, 5.0. So we can store multiple items of the same value in the same list, and we're not going to get any issues. All right, so lists are ordered. The items inside of lists, they have a defined order that will not change unless we apply list methods. List methods are essentially built-in functions in Python that are used to manipulate lists. So when using information from lists, you can call the entire list a single entry from the list, or certain ranges from that list that you want to print out. So first, to print out the entire list, in order to show you guys how to do that, first I need to create a list. So I'm going to create a list with a variable called num, set equal to square brackets, and inside of that list I'm going to store some data. So I'm just going to move this across a little bit. Okay, so we have a list now. And how are we going to print out the entire list? All right, so to do that, we would need to do print and then the variable containing the list. So in this case, I have num as my variable. You would probably have something different, so just do print and then the variable containing the list. All right, so now how can we print out a certain item from a list? So for example, what if I wanted to print out the first item in this list, so 1.0? So to do that, I need to first teach everyone indexes. So lists are indexed. The items in lists, they have a certain index number, okay? So in the case of lists, the first item in a list, the far most left item, so the first item, will have the index number of 0. Okay, so this has the index number of 0. The second item will have the index number of 1. Third goes to 2. Fourth will go to 3. And the fifth will go to 4. So notice how the first item starts at 0. Generally in computer science, the way you count is you go from 0 onwards. So I would need to do print and then the variable containing the list. But however, This time, I need to use square brackets and then the index number of the item. So the index number would be 0 in my example. I want to print out the first item in my list, so I would need to use 0. Okay. So something that I also need to teach you guys about are negative indexes. So the way negative indexes work is it's pretty much the opposite of what I just said. So it's you start from the rightmost and then you go to the leftmost. So you would start at -1. So we have -1, -2, -3, so on, so on. I'll just write a bunch of dots right here. And the way negative indexes work is that this negative number wraps around and it will go to the farmost right object or item, so the last item in this list. And the last item in this list just so happens to be 10. So if we do print and then the variable containing the list and then -1, we will get the farmost right item in the list. If we do print num -2, we would get the second to last item. Print num -3, we would get the third to last item. So on, so on, so on. All right? If we do print num -1 index, we'll get the same output as print num +4 index. If we do print num -2 index, we're going to get the same output as print num +3 index, and so on, so on, so on. So essentially, these negative indexes are quite similar to these positive indexes. The only difference is that the positive index is counting from left to right, and the negative index is counting from right to left. All right, we print out ranges of items from this list. So to do that, we have to do print parentheses, the variable containing the list. So in my case, I have num, opening bracket, closing bracket, and then the actual range of indexes. So in my case, I want to print a range going from the value of 5 and 9, 5 through 9. So I want to print out 5 through 9. Right, so to do this, we need to first, inside of those square brackets, we need to put the starting index number of the value that I want to print out, colon, the ending index number of where I want to stop. Okay, so in my case, I have 5, and then I want to print out through 9. So just for reference, I'm going to write the index numbers. Okay, so we have the index numbers written. And what is my starting index number? That's going to be 1, colon, the ending index number of where I want to stop. I want to stop in the 4th index number. This is where I want to stop. I don't want to stop printing out items in the 3rd index because I want to print out 9. So the only way to print out 5 through 9 is to have the stopping index number of 4. I can't do 3, otherwise 9 won't print out. Okay, and then if I run this, I will get the output of 5 through 9. So what if you want to print out 10 through 7? So right through left. That's not going to work. You can only go from left to right. If you do right through left, you're just going to get an empty string. So I'm going to explain this using negative indexes. You can use positive indexes or negative indexes. So for explaining sake, I'm going to write the negative indexes. All right, so the starting index is going to be -3. Okay, the starting index, what we want to print out is -3, and then colon the ending index. All right, so where do we want to stop? We can't stop at -1, right? Because if we stop at -1, this is not going to print out. This will not print out. So we would just have to leave it like that. We would do num colon -3 colon, and then we would just put another colon to symbolize onwards, to symbolize just keep on going until you run out of values. Okay? All right, so lists are changeable, meaning that we can change, add, and remove items in a list after it has been created. And we can do that by using list methods. Once again, list methods are a bunch of built-in functions in Python used to manipulate lists. All right, so here are a bunch of important list methods that I will be teaching everyone. Okay, so I have a list here. And what if I want to change a certain value into something else? So to do that, I would have to do my list name, square brackets, and then the index number of what I want to change. So I want to change the first item in my list into a new number. So I want it to be a new number of 9. So I want 1 to change to 9. Okay? Now I'm just going to print out the list so you guys can see what's happening. And in fact, 1 has now been changed to 9. Okay? All right, so now what if I want to add a new item in my list to the end? So I want to add a new item in the end of my list. To do that, I have to do my list name dot append, and then the thing that I want to add in my list, and I'll just say item. Print out the list, and then in fact, item has been printed out in the end of the list. All right, so what if you want to add an item perhaps somewhere else instead of the end? To do that, you would have to do your list name dot insert the index number that you want to insert your item in. So I'll just do the index number of 4, comma, the actual item you want to store. And I'll store item 2. And then I'm going to print that out. And then as you can see, item 2 has now been stored in the 4th index. All right, so what if you want to know how many items are in your list? So to do that, you would have to do len parentheses the list name. I'm just going to print that out. And then as you can see, we have a length of 8 in my example. So to reverse the order of your list, you can use the reverse list method. You leave the parentheses empty. We print this out. As you can see, this has now been reversed. All right, so what if you want to remove a certain item from your list? Parentheses, the item name that you want to remove. So I want to remove item 2. As you can see, item 2 has now been removed. All right, so what if you want to remove by indexes? To do that, you would have to use the pop list method. The index number, so I want to remove item this time. All right, so now we're just going to print out the list. And as you can see, item has been removed from our list. Okay, so what if you want to copy a list? To do that, you need to create a new variable and set that equal to your old list dot copy parentheses. And I'm going to print these two lists out so you can see the differences. So we get two lists with the same values because num has been copied. So what if I want to add two lists together? To do that, I need to do num plus var. So the first list plus the second list. Alternatively, I could do the old list dot extend the new list. Okay, so this is the end of this presentation. You can contact us via email or Instagram. Our Instagram is chspyoneers, and our email is chspyoneers@gmail.com. And once again, thank you for watching.